I began learning like many youngsters do twice a week Kathak class. And I never had a dream to be a dancer. I think I would say dance chose me more than me choosing dance. But I always enjoyed storytelling. I always enjoyed expression. And I had a wonderful teacher. And so the Rajeshri Shirke, Rajeshri Shirke, novel. And I was in her batch of her senior most students. And she was just about getting established. And so we were showcased, and she started creating her innovative work on us. And then she moved and started working with this Marathi theatre director, Chetan Dadar. And so they started innovating a form called dance theatre, which they named Rangandritya. And that's when we began training in spoken text, we began looking at character, and that was immensely exciting for me. Also, there were some visitors that came, and we attended workshops in contemporary dance. I remember I did my first contemporary dance workshop at 17 or 18 with John Burt from Australia, and he was from the Ska Dada company of dance. And so that was an opening into a whole new world of body and expression and form. So before I knew it, I gave my first solo Kathak performance, performing the repertoire, rather late because I rebelled against the idea of an Arangetram. I thought it was a major show, just to a display of wealth and money and all that, and very little dance. So I rebelled against it. But I was performing with my teacher. And then just to prove to myself that I could do a 3-hour Kathak performance, after so many years of learning. I'd been learning for almost 2 decades. So I did that at 24. And it was an incredible experience. Did a lot of riyaz and daily hard work for that show. But immediately after the show, I knew I did not want to be a Kathak soloist, because I knew I could hold an audience, but that space, I knew exactly where the claps were going to come. There were going to be chakkars and that stance and that calls for claps, and that made me, that space of comfort and kind of stagnation made me very, very uncomfortable. Because that's when my teacher told me now is the time to apply for shows, for festivals. And there was something within me that said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go this path. And she couldn't understand it. So that was the time when I broke away, when I said, I have to follow this up on my own. And then there were 2 years of almost no dancing, because it had been such a, almost like a parent-child relationship, that I almost equated dance to her. And so then without her, my body just used to freeze. But then I started doing a lot of my own theatre and dance innovations, and that's when Kabir came into the picture. I'd listened to the poems of Kabir when I was with Didi, in fact, in 2003. And that's when I've also done my MA in English literature. And so literature has always been a place that has inspired me. And that's when I first choreographed to a poem. And it was by an African-American writer, Ntozake Shange. And she calls it a choreo poem. And it's called For Colored Girls Who've Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. That's the name of this 24-page long poem. And I remember barging into my teacher's office and saying, there's no way I'm going to write an assignment on this. I want to dance an assignment on this as part of my MA literature course. And they were fortunately open enough to let me try that. And that was my first innovation, where I placed the passion flower of Southwest Los Angeles, a character who was very sexually out there and fully aware of her sensuality. And I placed this character in Banaras, and I danced her in Kathak. to a recorded sarangi track. And that's when a lot of things opened up for me. A lot of classifications, a lot of stereotypes that I saw in Indian classical dance about the koi, naika, and certain ways of being and seeing, that totally fell away. And I said, here's a character who's real, who's nuanced, and who I can embody in my Kathak body. So that became a breakthrough, and that's when I even went back to my traditional thumris and started dancing them in other ways. So I still dance Kathak, and my primary language of expression remains Kathak. I teach Kathak, but my approach to teaching is more democratic. There's more improvisation from day one, because I feel there's a lot of room in which the form can manifest itself in many different ways. So when I see that same I call it rata hua, it's just that something that's mugged up and done to death. Those kind of points of stagnation is what I try to move away from, and really let the form breathe and let the form dance. In my dance, there is a lot of abstraction, but I also use text. And I never make the dance, I try not to make the dance illustrative of the text. I try to make the dance a response to the text, or taking off from the text, or another text, a gestural text, or a body text, which is acting in conversation with the spoken words. So that's how I treat it. And it actually depends from work to work how that changes, because there have been places in which I have deliberately done padarth, as in whatever is spoken is also shown. But that was to have that, direct effect. That this is a gesture, this is a line. Like they do in Kudiyattam, for example, each gesture and each word. I've done that too, but deliberately, intentionally. And at other times there's a story woven around the text, which is the dance, or there might be it might lead to another story. What I've done is actually I'd like to tell you, in 2009 I got a scholarship to go to London to the Laban School of Contemporary Dance. And the reason I decided to go there was, my question was, what is the language my body wants to speak? Because I had been dancing Kathak for 22 years, and I had been choreographing with text, without text, my own works, but I noticed a stagnation and some repetitive movements and things that I enjoyed. And so I thought my choreography was getting very repetitive. So I wanted to break that cycle, and kind of that idea of a comfort zone always makes me very uncomfortable. So I want to push out of that. So that's what took me to London, to a new culture, to a daily dance school, 8:30 to 6, learning contemporary technique, throwing myself into an alien culture, alien form. And I think that did tremendous good things to my body, in the sense of I'm still not a contemporary dancer in terms of contemporary technique, but it totally broke my body and it broke my form. And so I had to teach myself Kathak in my newly aligned and newly found contemporary body, which was a joy. Because what happened was, I went there thinking, I'm a Kathak dancer, 20 years of dance. And then I was told, oh yeah, you don't know how to stand. I was just like, really? So it was like a huge, like everything tore apart at all levels. And then one thing was beautiful, that they told us, you're on your own journey. You don't need to compare yourself to someone who's been doing contemporary dance for 10 years. So I was probably the worst dancer in that school. But I think it was the most liberating thing for me to know that, and know that doesn't matter, because I'm trying. It took me 6 months to unlearn, to do my first contemporary class. I realized there are so many habits and so many things that I had been doing, practicing almost wrongly out of habit in my Kathak body. like things like alignment and form are not addressed in Indian classical dance, and they just say that you do it 100 times and you'll get it. And I thought that was a problem because I was never told to access that line from my heel to my neck, for example. And once I accessed it, the chakkars were suddenly easy. Like the same chakkars I had been struggling with, and it was always a gamble to know whether I would land or not, was because I had not paid attention to certain basic things. So that's when I realized how much is missing in maybe urban Indian classical dance pedagogy and everywhere. So I really wanted to bring that aspect into my teaching and to my practice. So that really changed my form in a lot of ways. One more thing I discovered in London was improvisation, because we were in a multicultural course. So I choreographed a piece on a Japanese dancer, and there was a German 40-year-old who had never danced in her life. And this was the first time she was experiencing dance. And there was, I think, an English dancer and a dancer from India who had trained in ballet. So 4 different forms. And when they got into the studio, and I just asked them I'd given them a certain form and asked them to improvise. And they were phenomenal in that stimulus response in the studio space. But as soon as we had to do it as a showing, it used to fail. It miserably fail. Everyone used to just freeze. So that's when I started thinking, what is it about that space of improvisation which is so alive, which can never be replicated in performance? And what is that awareness that happens in an improvisation process, and that the idea of letting go and letting your body do something in a language it knows? And then when I researched back, I said that's most sophisticatedly researched in rag, because you have the structure of the rag, and a musician comes on stage not knowing what they're going to sing, and they create an ambience, and they create a whole atmosphere, and they build from nothing. So I said, if I have a Kathak vocabulary which is so nuanced, why can't I improvise in it? So that I came back with that question. For the last 10 years, I have been exploring improvisation and dance with various musicians. So it's live music, and we come on stage with a structure and we improvise. So my first, and I think my most risky project in that, was with a vocalist, Makarand Deshpande, who's trained in Hindustani vocal. And we took Kabir's poems, and the whole 40-minute piece is an improvisation. This one is more based in the focal point of the pieces are poems by different bhakti poets across India. There was a bhakti movement that swept India you must be aware, from the 10th century onwards. And in various languages, people spoke about various ways to access the divine, or access the sacred, or access a space which is beyond you, which doesn't entail going physically to a temple or performing a ritual. It doesn't have a caste-based discrimination that, which was, you don't need to read the Vedas and you don't need to know various philosophies. You can access him by taking his name. And that was a huge, almost a revolution that happened across India. So of course Kabir is the most spoken about poet in that sense. So Kabir's poems can be approached at an intellectual level, at a sensual level, he throws riddles at you, he says something, and then it can be interpreted in 3-4 different ways. So his is a very different space. The second poem is a 14th century Marathi poet, woman poet, Zanabai, who speaks about God being her lover. And she says, I don't give a damn, I'll go to the bazaar. And Keshava, I've become your whore. I'm coming to wreck your home. So this was a 14th century woman talking about traversing the streets in a crowded bazaar, which is still not, a huge thing in so many parts of India and the world today. The idea of safely going, and she demands union with the god. She doesn't say, please, may I, or will you. She says, I'm coming. You don't have a choice. So that kind of a voice. So it shifts from Kabir to Zanabai to Chaudhaiya in Kannada. He's a ferryman, and he says, I'm a ferryman without a body. And I'll take you across this great flowing stream to a village without words or limits. For me, the medium has been literature, largely, in many of my works. My latest work, Khayal, is actually my most formal work, which I've just started. It's a work in progress, in which we're trying to inhabit a rag. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to inhabit the space of ek tal vilambit, like a tal, in a rag, in a three-dimensional movement. So it's a trio, 3 dancers working with rag and alapi. So that's a more formal work. Something like Let Her Be Born, which I'd done with women's voices from across the world, had less overtly spiritual content. So it had poems by Joy Harjo, Native American poet. It had Marina Tsetseva from Russia. It had Bahinabai Chowdhury from Maharashtra, who were talking about everyday lives. So that I've also done work like that. I've done a work based on the character of Gandhari from the Mahabharata. So it's retelling the Mahabharata from Gandhari's point of view. Yes, and Putana I did with Gati. Yeah. So that is very, I think somewhere politics enters in my work, but it very through those characters and through the way I redefine characters. Because I asked myself the question, when I was doing Putana and Gandhari, as in where would I meet Putana and Gandhari today? It's not about representing something that was, and that's the reason I haven't done more than 3 shows of Putana, because I'm not ready for her yet. I had a very interesting incident when I was on a train, and there was a ladies' first class compartment, and there was a lady lying kind of not. She looked like a mad woman, in one compartment, and she had a little bit of blood and dust all over her face, and she was sitting at the door and laughing, and nobody was entering that compartment, and the other compartment was packed with women. And out of habit, I also got into the other compartment. And then I looked at her and I said, I'm not ready to meet Putana. Because that is Putana. She is the other, and she is someone you're scared of. And so to embody her, I need to meet her. I need to speak to her. So it's that kind of a quest that I had with embodiment of Putana, because it's Putana you meet on the street every day. Someone who's shunned, who's not looked at, who's mutilated. So that's been one of my most difficult pieces, which I'm going to revisit at some point in my life. Yeah, I think there are many ways of inhabiting the classical and contemporary space. And one is you can be both classical in form and approach. I think you can be classical in form and contemporary in approach. You can be contemporary in form and classical in your approach. Or you can be contemporary in both form and approach. And I think permutations and combinations of all these are present in many dancers today. For me, I don't see it as a contradiction at all. Because I've been, like in Khayal for instance, the form is totally classical, but the approach is contemporary. Like when we're kind of plotting a rag in space. So I've been inspired by Laban's ideas of the spacing your body in a cube or in an icosahedron, and really dancing or moving a rag, like alapi in space, but very, very clearly defined points. So that's one way I work. And the second way, it's I dance in a space of poetry and allow my body to tell me where it wants to go. The classical has given me such a rich vocabulary in terms of dance, music, and literature that I don't want to move away from that space in terms of form sometimes, because when you hold a mudra like this, it's almost like you're connected to all the people who have invested in this mudra, held this mudra. So it's historical, it's at the same time contemporary and of the now, but it's embedded with all those energies. And so when it opens, you're dancing with that sense of rootedness, that sense of connection, and that sense of macro, like a sense of the universe getting formed as each mudra changes with each breath. And I think that's the space I'd really like to go deeper into and explore and see where it goes.
Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
Thank you.